You're watching Mainland News. I'm Joy Devine. In today's news, Nelson AOS and CIB arrest wanted man, Smith welcomes Southern Link design funding, busy weekend for rescue chopper, Nelson swamped with more heavy rain, police op prevents drug-related harm, and big crowds expected for Light Nelson. Detective Sergeant Chris Roberts of Nelson Police CIB said Jones has been the subject of wide national publicity generated by police, and they're confident that his arrest will have an impact in decreasing the supply, use and associated social carnage in our district methamphetamine so often causes. A substantial amount of what is believed to be methamphetamines was also located in the motel room where Mr. Jones was located. Another male and a female who were also apprehended at the motel face charges in relation to this drug find. Mr. Roberts says the successful result of this operation has come about through a steady stream of information provided by the public, for which they are extremely grateful. Mr. Jones was due to appear in the Nelson District Court on Monday this week to face charges in relation to Sunday morning's find, along with other charges that relate to the discovery of a portable clandestine laboratory and methamphetamine in a Nelson secure lock-up unit on the 7th of May 2014. Nelson MP Nick Smith has welcomed the Prime Minister's announcement of a $1,212 million regional roads package that includes the investigation and design of the $40 to $50 million Southern Link Road. I spoke with Dr. Smith about the announcement, which will no doubt be welcome news for some, but maybe not for others, especially in the Victory community where the highway is planned to cut through.
Well, I think it's a long-term strategic infrastructure issue that is vital for Nelson. People should have taken note of those retail figures that showed in Nelson City the numbers were significantly down, where in Richmond and the wider region were up. Now, if we don't address this long-term transport infrastructure issue, then we are effectively writing the long-term prospects of the city of Nelson off, and that is something that neither a mayor nor a member of parliament can responsibly do. I'm also delighted that we're going to be able to get on and do the detailed design. We've been in an exercise of what I call shadow boxing, and that is where people are surmising what the details might be. Of course there are important severance issues for that issue of Victory. We need to give very careful attention to the design to ensure that that community is able to move forward. I'm confident we can do that, but the only way you can is to get down and look at how you're going to resolve those very local issues for that community. My overriding thought, though, and this is where as a government and as a community, you've got to look at the overall community good. And with this new route, there actually is heavy traffic passing far fewer households, and we have huge benefits on Waimea Road, which is overly congested, and also in the Tahunanui community, and we open the door up to be able to change Rocks Road into the sort of boulevard properly with cycleways and walkways that will just be a huge asset for the region.
Absolutely. And even just from a practical aspect, I have to say that I now live in the Tahunanui Hills, and I've been really surprised by these big trucks that come through and the way that they rattle the houses, like an earthquake actually. So I guess... Well, the
road was never designed in that area for the 12 to 1,300 heavy trucks per day. We've found out with recent storm events that it's very vulnerable. My view is a purpose-built highway as originally scheduled all the way back 50 years ago in the 60s where the railway went is that right long-term strategic answer for the port in terms of getting exports from the region to the world, in terms of the community, of actually being able to get access to facilities like the upgraded Suter Art Gallery we're having a debate about, facilities like the Trafalgar Centre, it's no point having central city facilities unless you've got the infrastructure that will enable people to get in and out.
Now, can you allay any fears that the Victory community may have, regarding this?
Well, of course it's going to have an impact on the Victory community, and I'm not going to discount and pretend that there is not some downside for them. But I also say that this has been very long-term planned, and that if we work properly as a community, there are ways of which we can minimise the impacts on them. I'd also say that every major roading project around the country, whether it be the Kapiti Expressway, whether it be Transmission Gully in Wellington, whether it be the new major highways in Christchurch or Auckland, have these dilemmas. The worst problem for Nelson would be to pretend the problem doesn't exist, continue to defer a decision, to make no progress. That would be of huge detriment to all of Nelson in the long term.
And as you say, this announcement gets us off base one, and it pretty much gets the ball rolling, doesn't it?
This is an announcement to fund the detailed design and to get the project for resource consenting. I'm very upfront with my community in saying this gets step one, the design done, step two is the resource consent, step three is the project under construction. My timetable is to advance those steps as quickly as possible. To have got to first base is a really important step. They say that on any journey, the first step is the most difficult, so too with getting the Southern Link built.
So the government's regional road package includes funding for the design of the Southern Link through Victory and the Railway Reserve. How do you feel about this?
We use the reserve every day. Our kids go to the Victory School and the Nelson Intermediate. I reckon it's going to make a lot of noise, a lot of hassles to the school kids, dropping kids off. A highway is going to be real busy to our primary school kids. So yeah, I'm not liking it at all.
To be honest, I think it's a bit sad on the kids and that going to school on this little bit as well, and traffic with houses, and I don't know if they'll like it. And it's a good little spot for kids to come down on their scooters, and it's safer for the environment. And I just think it's a dumb idea, really. Yeah, and they need to think more about it hard, and understand that this is a road that they made for kids to scooter on, safer for school and their environment, and making kids happy that they're at school instead of being hit by cars or anything like that, and I just think that they need to think harder, and I reckon they leave the reserve like how it is and just keep using Waimea Road, and yeah.
Well, it would, as a cyclist, it'd be a bit disappointing to take away this lovely cycleway, yeah.
My opinion is, no, we've got enough roads here. We have. We've got Waimea Road there, and we've got Rocks Road. And sometimes I'll look up the road over there and there's nothing there. I want to put a road here, and we've got this catchment of schools here. The kids go to school along here. It's a safe place. And that's what we're all about, really. Safety.
The region has been swamped with another bout of heavy rain on already saturated ground after the very recent deluge only mid-last week. The rain set in at around midnight on Sunday night, and on Monday morning at the time this bulletin was recorded, Mainland had received no reports of surface flooding or new slips in the Nelson-Tasman region. All Tasman District Council sports ground, however, are closed for training and play. That was on Monday. Please check with your club manager about practices and game day fixtures. Last Wednesday, there was extensive flooding resulting in road closures, evacuations, property damage and flight cancellations. Waimea Road was closed on Wednesday afternoon as surface flooding occurred around the city. Sections of road in Toitoi Valley were also closed, while Rocks Road was reduced to one lane due to rock and mud slipping. The Victory Square area didn't fare well either, as heavy rain caused an overflow from drains which flooded into shops from water cascading down Amano Street. The water wake caused by traffic also did little to improve the situation. Homes were evacuated in Murphy Street, and Civil Defence set up a centre close to the flooded areas at the Victory Community Centre. While surface flooding was taking hold of Nelson, the Tasman region also suffered from the heavy rain event, with a deluge of 146 millimetres falling in 6 hours and even longer in parts of Golden Bay. Police believe the true success of this year's national cannabis operation is not the drugs destroyed, the guns seized or the suspects arrested, but rather the harm that has been prevented from occurring in the community. Detective Senior Sergeant Scott McGill says that during Operation Lucy, 105,000 cannabis plants were destroyed, 112 firearms seized and 640 suspects arrested. Mr McGill says the cannabis trade is a destructive force in New Zealand society. He says by destroying over 100,000 plants before they were harvested, police have prevented significant social damage from occurring in our community. Mr Gill says the arrest of 64 patched gang members or associates during Operation Lucy shows the strong connection between organised crime and the cannabis trade. He says they're very pleased with the results from this year's operation, which shows our commitment to restrict the influence of these organised criminal groups. In addition to the plants and firearms seized, an estimated $195,000 of stolen property was recovered. The number of plants seized per district range from 7,600 in the Tasman Police District, 1,000 in the Wellington area, and as many as 46,000 plants seized in Northland. The Nelson Marlborough Rescue Helicopter crew were kept busy over the weekend, responding to 6 call-outs across the Nelson Marlborough Buller region. In the first incident, at around 10:45 a.m. on Saturday, a 3-year-old Motueka Valley boy suffered an upper leg injury, requiring him to be transported by helicopter to Nelson Hospital. Then at around 12 noon the same day, a call was received by the Maritime Rescue Coordination Centre in Wellington to a vessel 5 nautical miles off the coast of Westport, where a 49-year-old Ukrainian fisherman had become seriously ill and required immediate hospital care. Despite difficult sea conditions, the Nelson Marlborough Rescue Helicopter crew were able to winch the onboard intensive care paramedic down to the vessel to assess and treat the patient before winching him back on board the helicopter to be flown to Nelson Hospital for further treatment. Soon afterwards, at around 2:45 p.m, a call was received to assist police in a search for a person believed to have been swept into the water in Blind Channel behind Tahunui Beach. And at approximately 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, a call was received to Tapawera, where a 66-year-old woman had been thrown from her horse and sustained a serious leg injury. She was treated at the scene before being transported via chopper to Nelson Hospital. That evening at 5:30, the Nelson Marlborough Rescue Helicopter was again in the air, responding to an unwell 58-year-old male in Okiwi Bay who required hospital treatment. And on Sunday, the helicopter services were again required to uplift a 53-year-old male from the Motupipi area in Golden Bay after he collapsed. He was assessed and treated by the onboard intensive care paramedic before being flown to Nelson Hospital for further care. And finally, artists are working on the last details of their light installations. Electricians have been roped into problem solving. Arborists are working out how they'd place lighting to illuminate trees, and the organisers already have their eyes on the long-range weather forecast. Light Nelson is set to brighten up the midwinter with the children's participation event Float a Wish only days away on Thursday, July 3rd. Then 1 week later, the switches are flicked on for Light Nelson, which runs from July the 11th to the 13th. Light Nelson Trust Chair Brian Riley says it's very different from last year when there was some anxiety over whether people would come. He says they weren't sure how many they'd get for their first event, but certainly didn't expect the 16,000 who turned out. He says so this year it's not about will they come, he says it's more about managing the crowd. Light Nelson is a collaboration of art, science and technology, with 50 artists letting their creativity loose on 40 installations that cover a range of innovative media, including laser technology, digital imagery, performance, fire, music and poetry. Brian says there are several projects he's very excited about. After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.